I want to talk to you now about children and their schoolwork and some of the problems as they age that you have to be aware of as a single parent. According to a domestic judge in our Lorain County, 95% of all children that come through his courts are children from single parent families. Raising children was a job meant for two. When one parent has it, then that parent has to do all of the work. They have to go to the store and buy all of the milk. They have to earn all of the money, and they have to look out for their children. And sometimes the children pay in, not that the parents are not aware, they just don't see it because they are so overwhelmed with day-to-day life. 95% of all children never get told what that divorce is about and blame themselves. And so their schoolwork suffers. And one place where, and this is a very sad story, the parents who are overwhelmed take it out on their children. There was a woman in our own community. She came into the school with her oldest child, who was only 5 years old, and she had 4 other ones that were little stair steps below this one. And the new principal bent down to this beautiful little girl and said, "Hi, honey, how are you?" And this mother said, "She is a goddamn monster." Now, we expect the schools to be able to raise our children when for 5 years this is what we have told them. And we tell them these things because we're angry, because we're hurt, because we can take it out on them. This is not good. It is not good for the children. We are blaming school systems all over America for the problems that we have brought to ourselves. And we have to stop this. There are not enough schools. There is not enough money. There is not enough anything available to help these children if we don't help them ourselves before they ever even get to school. So it's important that you pay attention to your children, and when you are just too tired, you sit down and you say, "I am just too tired." And you let your children know that you love them very much. And you know, it is amazing, even after you talk to a child like that, if you sit down and you tell that child that you love it and you're sorry, that child will forgive you, even when you don't deserve forgiveness. I want to talk to you about why a child misbehaves during a divorce situation. For a child, you have to understand that as scary as it is for an adult, it's much worse for a child. He does not understand that if one parent leaves him, what's stopping the other parent from leaving him also? So he will develop habits, and sometimes it's more important for you to pay attention to what it is that that child is not saying, as well as what it is he is saying. If he begins to wet the bed, if he has nightmares, if he treats you terrible and has tantrums, if he doesn't want you to leave him off at daycare, even though he always loved daycare, if he is despondent, is he depressed, you have to pay close attention. And it is a fact that male children do far worse than female children, because usually the man has left the home, the wife is there, the female children do fine with the mother, but the male child has lost his parent. He's lost his identity. He is now in a house full of women, and so it's very confusing for him. So if that child is misbehaving, you need to understand why. This is one of the reasons it's so important for husbands and wives not to fight with each other, not to use the children against each other. If there's any way at all to maintain a relationship so that that child does not lose his father, you will notice a big difference in all of your children. You will see that 60% of all children in divorce situations do just fine. And the reason that they're doing just fine is because their parents are doing just fine. They're not using the children and they're not hurting the children. So you have to pay attention, again, to what it is that that child is trying to tell you in whatever way he's trying to tell you. Sometimes he may be even too small to talk. But if you pay attention, that child will be just fine, and so will you. Some things to remember that will help you with your children is, first of all, never blame them and never let them accept the blame for your divorce. Fathers and mothers both, do not leave your children. It is important that you have contact with them. If you're not happy in the relationship that you're in and you need to get out, that's fine, but just keep in contact with your children. If at first it is too painful for you to go to the house, or if your new love of your life doesn't want you in the house where your husband or wife is at, you can be understanding of that, but don't let that new person in your life take your children away from you, because that will happen and you'll pay the price for it in the future. You must keep in contact. You must make sure that they understand, that the children understand that although you have left the marriage, that you're not going to leave them, because they're young and they don't understand, and it's up to you to make them understand. Also, the most important thing you can do is you need to teach them respect in schools, that the situation that they're in, they have to learn some respect, and it's up to you to teach that to them. And if you don't, then you're going to have problems further down the road. I want to talk to you about new relationships in your life, and since marriage is the #1 cause of divorce, I think that we need to be very careful who it is that we marry. In order to be careful about who it is that we marry, we need to pay attention that we have some likenesses within those people that are similar to our own, what's important to us, our own values. And I'm going to go over a list of things that you need to pay attention to before you fall in love for the next time. Because once you're in love, it's like love and lust and you can't think anymore. So it's important that you think before you fall in love. Some important things are, do both of you want children? You would be amazed how many people over the past years that I have talked to have said they never discussed an issue as important as whether or not they want to have children with the person that they are going to marry. Most of the time, and this is surprising, I have found that the men really want children and the women are at a point where they want a career. So make sure that you talk to whoever it is that you're in love with before you make an important decision in a new relationship. You have to have common interests and common friends. And if your person doesn't have any friends at all, a red light ought to go off in your mind that something isn't right here. You need to pay attention to it, because some people are so possessive and so jealous and so nasty that they're not going to allow you to have any friends. And if they don't allow you to have any friends, they're probably also not going to allow you to have contact with your own children from your first marriage. So pay attention to that and be aware of it. You need to know whether or not that man or woman you want to be with is a homebody or a bar hopper, because there is a big difference between the two. A lot of fellas will, especially when they are in a divorce situation, and I shouldn't say just fellas because women will do it at home, but they drink a lot. You need to be aware of that. If they have a serious drug problem, either one of them, if they're into drugs, if they're drinking, whatever their situation is, and a lot of it is prescription drugs. And I am so angry at doctors who will give away the Prozac and give away everything else, not even asking their patients, are they sitting home alone at night drinking and taking these drugs on top of it? Because believe me, it will take you years to get it out of that person's system, and if you're in love with them, it's going to drive you crazy for a long time if you try to save them. So be aware of that. A career is a very important thing, whether it's the man or the woman. On the way to tape this video, there is a large billboard in New York City, and I could not believe this billboard as I went by on the train. And it said, "Are your kids ruining your career?" I have to tell you, unless that billboard is just up there for us to think about it, it should be the other way around. Is your career ruining your children? There is nothing in this world that is more important to you than your health and happiness and their health and happiness. And if your job is coming between you and them, pay attention to it. You will turn around and look up and your children will be grown and gone and they won't need you anymore. Many fights occur in new relationships because you can't decide where to live. She might want to live in an apartment, you might want to buy a house. This is a big step. People don't talk about it. It is important. You need to know. Your in-laws are also important. I talk to people all of the time who are fighting with their in-laws, and usually it's because the in-laws don't seem to think that the person that you are in love with or you want to marry is good enough for you. Well, you need to stop them right then. If you love that person and that person is a decent human being and will be good to you and to your children, that's what's important. It's not important what mom or dad think. You have to listen to their advice because they've been around for a long time. But nobody knows your parents better than you do because you've been training them for your entire life. So if they're just plain mean and not happy with anybody you're happy with, remember that. It's important. Don't forget stepchildren. If you're going into a relationship, you need to have, if not their love, you need to have their respect. If the mother or father, the natural mother or father of that child doesn't teach them respect, you're going to have a whole lot of trouble, and it's going to be really miserable for you and for them and for the children, because those children are smart. They will use everything that they have to get rid of you. That's their job. You are infringing on their life, and if they don't like you and they see that their mother or father isn't making them respect you, they will do everything they can to hurt you, so be aware of that. You need to understand before you go into a new relationship, whatever happened to the old relationship, or otherwise you'll be carrying all this heavy luggage right down the road with you. You won't be able to put your arms around someone if you're still holding on to whoever it is that's way back there, and it might be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You need to get past this point, put that luggage down, and put your arms around who it is that you care about and build that new life, or you'll never be happy. Some of the major causes of relationships going bad are adultery, which again, that's a sign that there's a problem. It's not necessarily what the problem is. There is money trouble, abuse, whether children, sexual, drinking, drugs. There's a loss of love. You simply outgrow each other. I mean, you can't be angry with someone who, for no other reason than you just don't love them anymore. You need to be able to get out of that relationship. And indifference, because if you put yourself first and you're in a relationship and the other person doesn't care about you at all, you need to get out of that relationship. It's not healthy for you. And I think one of the most important ones, the most important for me, was lack of laughter. You could have a very good home life, you could have healthy, happy children, but for whatever reason, you just weren't happy, and your spouse wasn't happy. You need to be with someone for your sake and for your children's sake that makes you laugh, because life sometimes is very difficult and you need somebody that you can laugh with. So the most important thing I can say to you is be kind to yourself and everyone else. Margie Morris is here to talk to us about the issues of divorce. With a divorce occurring in the United States every minute, we need as much help as we can get. So Margie, can you help us?
Well, I'm going to try. My hunch is that anyone who's watching this tape is either feeling a combination of rejection, hurt, loss, and a lot of fear. Fear is really the foundation of everything that gets in the way. And the natural thing that any one of us do when we're feeling fearful is we try to blame someone else or something else. Now, that's exactly the problem. We want to try to eliminate any kind of blaming and any kind of anger. The important thing for all of us to do is to really look at ourselves and find out who we were when the marriage began, why it worked when it was working, and why it stopped working. It's only by looking at those things that we can then move on with our lives and make things better. There's no reason for anybody to blame ourselves or anybody else. There's no victims, only survivors. We've all done what we've been brought up to do, and now it's time to really look at it and see what really happened.